Dahyun wiped the sweat from his forehead and looked across the golden fields. The wheat swayed gently in the artificial breeze, perfect and ready for harvest. He smiled. 3 years of hard work on New Haven Colony had finally paid off. His children would eat well this season. The 3 moons of New Haven hung low in the purple sky. Each moon held a different part of the colony. Dahyun lived on the farming moon, where 2 million people grew food for the entire system. His neighbor waved from across the field. Life was good here, far from Earth but still feeling like home. On Earth, Captain Minji sat at her station in the communications center. Her shift was almost over. She had monitored hundreds of colonies today, receiving their weekly reports. Everything was normal. Boring, even. She liked boring. Boring meant people were safe. New Haven's report came through right on schedule. Population stable. Crops excellent. No problems. Minji logged it and moved to the next colony. She never imagined that would be the last message New Haven would ever send. 2 days passed. Then silence. Minji noticed it first. New Haven always sent a daily update at exactly 800 hours. When the 3rd day came with no signal, she felt a cold weight in her stomach. She checked her systems 3 times. Nothing was wrong on her end. She called her supervisor. "Sir, New Haven has gone dark. No communications for 72 hours. Admiral Taeyang was in a meeting when the report reached him. He excused himself and walked to the communications bay. His face was calm, but his hands gripped the railing tightly. "What do we know?" "Nothing, sir," Minji said. "All channels are dead. I've tried every frequency. It's like the colony just vanished." Taeyang closed his eyes. He had a sister on New Haven. She had 3 children. He pushed the thought away. "Launch a reconnaissance drone. Fastest one we have." The drone would take 3 days to reach New Haven. 3 days of not knowing. 3 days of hoping for a technical failure, a solar storm, anything except the alternative. Ambassador Hyunwoo was attending a boring dinner party at the Galactic Council station when his communicator buzzed. The message was short. New Haven dark. Drone en route. He excused himself and left immediately. The other ambassadors barely noticed. Humans were still new to the galactic community, still learning their place. The drone arrived on the 4th day. Minji was still at her station. She had refused to leave, surviving on coffee and hope. When the drone signal came through, her hands shook as she opened the feed. The screen showed nothing but ash. The first moon was a blackened sphere. The biodomes were shattered. The cities were craters. Nothing moved. Nothing lived. Minji switched to the 2nd moon. The same devastation. The 3rd moon showed fields of glass where the heat had melted sand into grotesque shapes. She couldn't breathe. She tried to speak, but no words came. Her supervisor saw the feed and immediately called Admiral Taeyang. Taeyang arrived within minutes. He stood behind Minji's chair and watched the footage in silence. The drone continued its scan, searching for survivors. There were none. 2.3 million people had lived on New Haven Colony. Now there were only ghosts and ashes. "Energy signatures?" Taeyang asked quietly. The technician's voice trembled. "Plasma bombardment, sir. Military grade." This wasn't an accident. This was deliberate. The room fell silent. Plasma bombardment was illegal under galactic law. It was considered a war crime. The weapons burned so hot that nothing survived. Not buildings. Not bodies. Not even bacteria. "Scan for debris," Taeyang ordered. "Find me something." The drone's sensors picked up wreckage in orbit. Pieces of destroyed ships. The analysis took an hour. When it finished, the technician looked like he might be sick. "Sir, the debris matches Velcrin Dominion design. Their military markers are all over it. The Velcrin, a warrior species that had controlled this sector for 1,000 years. They had opposed human expansion from the beginning. They called humans weak, soft, unworthy of the stars." Taeyang stared at the screen for a long moment. Then he spoke in a voice like ice. "Assemble the Coalition Council. Emergency session, everyone now." He walked to his private office and locked the door. Only then did he allow himself to feel. He opened his desk drawer and pulled out a photograph. His sister smiled back at him, holding her 2 daughters and infant son. The photo had been taken on New Haven with the purple sky behind them. He set the photo on his desk and sat down. His hands were steady now. The grief would come later. Right now he needed to be clear. The Velcrin had made a mistake. They had killed humans thinking there would be no response. They thought humans were too new, too weak, too afraid of the older species. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The Earth Coalition Council met within 6 hours. Representatives from every human colony filled the emergency chamber. Premier Jiwan stood at the podium, her face pale but determined. "You've all seen the reports," she said. "New Haven is gone, all of it. 2.3 million of our people were murdered. The evidence points to the Velcrin Dominion." The chamber erupted in shouts. Some called for war. Others urged caution. A few wept openly. Jiwan raised her hand for silence. "Ambassador Hyunwoo is presenting our evidence to the Galactic Council as we speak. We will follow the proper channels. We will seek justice through the law." But her eyes told a different story. She knew what the council would do. They would talk. They would investigate. They would do nothing. The Velcrin were powerful. The other species feared them. Humans were just newcomers who didn't understand how things worked in the galaxy. On the Galactic Council station, Hyunwoo stood before 47 species. He showed them the footage. He presented the evidence. He demanded justice. The Velcrin representative, a female warrior named Sena, barely looked at the evidence. The Velcrin Dominion had nothing to do with this tragedy. Perhaps a rogue faction. Perhaps pirates using stolen ships. "We will investigate internally." Hyunwoo's jaw tightened. 2.3 million people are dead. This was an act of war. Sena's eyes narrowed. "War? Child species, you do not understand war. This is a matter for investigation. The council will form a committee. These things take time." Other species nodded. They offered condolences. They promised thoughts and prayers. But no one would condemn the Velcrin. No one would demand accountability. Hyunwoo left the council chamber and sent a single message to Earth. "They will do nothing." Admiral Taeyang received the message while standing in front of a map of human space. He had expected this. The galaxy ran on power, not justice. The strong did as they wished. The weak suffered, but the Velcrin had miscalculated. Humans were not weak. They had simply been patient, peaceful. They had hoped to find friends among the stars. Those hopes had died with New Haven. Taeyang opened a secure channel to Premier Jiwan. "Ma'am, I need authorization to access the reserve fleets and manufacturing protocols." Jiwan knew what he was asking. "How many?" "All of them," Taeyang said. "We're going to build an armada. We're going to find everyone responsible, and we're going to show the galaxy what happens when you murder humans and think we'll just accept it." Jiwan was quiet for a moment. Then she nodded. "Do it. I'll address the people tomorrow." The Velcrin wanted to see what humans are capable of. Let's show them. That night, Minji sat alone in the observation deck. She looked out at Earth, peaceful and blue. She thought about Daehyun and his family. She thought about the 2 million others who had just wanted to live and grow food and raise their children. She wiped her tears and made a decision. When the call went out for volunteers, she would join. She would serve on one of the warships. She would see this through to the end. The galaxy was about to learn a lesson. Humanity could be peaceful. Humanity could be patient. But when you killed their innocent, when you burned their homes and children, humanity would show you something else entirely. They would show you wrath. Premier Jiwon stood before the camera, her hands folded on the desk. Behind her, the Earth flag hung still in the windless room. Billions of humans across dozens of colonies waited to hear her words. The broadcast would reach every human settlement from Mars to the Outer Rim. She took a breath and began. "My fellow humans, 5 days ago we lost New Haven Colony. 2.3 million of our people were murdered in an act of deliberate violence. The evidence is clear. The Velcrin Dominion is responsible." Her voice remained steady, but her eyes burned with controlled fury. "We brought this evidence to the Galactic Council. We asked for justice. We asked for accountability. The Council has chosen to do nothing. They offer investigations that will take years. They offer words while our dead have no voice." She leaned forward slightly. "We are done waiting for others to recognize our right to exist. We are done hoping that justice will come from those who fear the strong more than they love what is right. Today, I invoke Article 7 of the Human Charter, the right to collective defense. The right to protect our people, the right to ensure this never happens again." Across human space, people listened in silence. "We will build a fleet, the largest fleet in galactic history. For every 3 colonists we lost, we will build 1 warship, 700,000 vessels. Each one a promise. Each one a declaration. We are not prey. We are not victims. We are humans and we take care of our own. The broadcast ended. The galaxy would hear about this speech within hours. Some species would laugh, others would worry. The Velcrin would dismiss it as the tantrum of an angry child species. They would all be proven wrong. General Kyungmin sat in the war room with Admiral Taeyang and a dozen other senior officers. Holographic displays showed every shipyard, every manufacturing facility, every resource depot in human space. 700,000 ships, Kyungmin said slowly. We've never built more than 10,000 at once. This will require total mobilization. Taeyang nodded. I know, can we do it? Kyungmin studied the numbers. She had spent the last 3 days running simulations. Yes, but it will take everything we have. Every factory converts to military production. Every resource gets redirected. No more luxury goods. No more civilian ship construction. Everything goes to the war effort. How long? Taeyang asked. 8 months. Maybe 9. We'll need to expand the shipyards and train hundreds of thousands of new workers. But yes, we can do it. Around the table, officers began discussing logistics, weapon systems, crew training, supply lines. The enormity of the task was staggering, but nobody suggested it was impossible. At the Galactic Council Station, Ambassador Hyunwoo watched the news feeds. The other species were reacting to Premier Jiwon's speech. Most thought it was bluster, empty threats from a grieving species. A Torvan diplomat approached him in the hall. The Torvans were an old species, cautious and pragmatic. Ambassador, surely your premier doesn't mean this literally. 700,000 warships, that's more vessels than most species have built in their entire history. Hyunwoo smiled coldly. We mean every word. The Torvan's expression shifted from amusement to concern. That would be unprecedented, the resources alone, and the Velcrin will not stand idle while you build such a fleet. Then they should prepare, Hyunwoo said. We are not asking permission. Back on Earth, the mobilization began immediately. Engineers like Borum received their orders before dawn. She stood in the design center with 300 other ship designers looking at the specifications for the new warship class, the Retribution-class destroyer. Smaller than traditional warships, but faster and deadlier, designed to be mass-produced quickly. Every system optimized for combat. No luxury, no waste, just pure military efficiency. Borum's team had 48 hours to finalize the design. They worked in shifts, barely sleeping. The ship needed to be simple enough to build quickly, but powerful enough to matter. It needed to work reliably and be easy to repair. On the 3rd day, they presented the final design. Admiral Taeyang walked through the holographic model, studying every detail. Weapons? He asked. 6 railgun turrets, Borum explained. Kinetic rounds that can punch through most shields. 4 fusion missile batteries, and 1 experimental graviton cannon mounted in the prow. We've never used graviton weapons in combat, but the tests are promising. Crew size? 40 people. Mostly automated systems. We need to train them fast and keep casualties low if we lose ships. Taeyang nodded slowly. Approved. Begin production immediately. I want the first prototype in 2 weeks. The shipyards around Earth, Mars, and Luna went into overdrive. Massive construction frames appeared in orbit, dozens at a time. Workers flooded in by the thousands. Many were civilians who had never built a warship before, but they learned quickly. The recruitment centers were overwhelmed. 40 million humans volunteered for the United Earth Navy in the first month alone, young and old, experienced and fresh. They came from every colony, every background. They all wanted the same thing, to make sure New Haven was not forgotten. Captain Junho was one of those volunteers. He had been a cargo pilot, hauling supplies between Earth and Mars. Boring work, but stable. When New Haven fell, he had been delivering food shipments, food that would never reach its destination. He enlisted the next day. Now he stood in a training facility with 5,000 other new officers, learning how to command a warship. The training was intense, 12-hour days, combat simulations, strategy classes, engineering basics. They learned how to fight as a unit, how to coordinate with thousands of other ships, how to survive in hostile space. Junho excelled. Within 3 months, he was assigned as captain of his own Retribution-class destroyer. The ship didn't have a name yet, just a designation number, but it would be his responsibility. His crew of 40 people who would live or die based on his decisions. On the Galactic Council station, Sina watched the human mobilization with growing unease. She had laughed at first, like most Velcrin, but the intelligence reports kept coming. The humans were actually doing it. The shipyards were expanding. The fleet was growing. She sent a message to the Velcrin High Command. The humans are building a war fleet. Current estimates suggest they will reach their stated goal of 700,000 vessels. Recommend we fortify border systems and prepare defensive positions. The response came back within hours. Let them build. Let them waste their resources. When they come, we will crush them. The Velcrin Dominion has never lost a war. We will not lose to children who barely know how to navigate the stars. Sena was not so confident. She had studied humans since they joined the galactic community. They were strange. They seemed weak and emotional, but they had a stubbornness that worried her. And they learned frighteningly fast. Months passed. The fleet grew, 100,000 ships. Then 200,000. The galaxy watched in disbelief. News organizations from every species covered the story. Some called it impressive. Others called it insane. The Velcrin called it a waste of time. Intelligence officer Nari worked in the shadows while the fleet took shape. Her job was to gather information on Velcrin military positions, where their ships gathered, how many they had, what their defenses looked like. She had contacts throughout the galaxy, information brokers who traded secrets for credits, disgruntled Velcrin officers who thought the massacre was a step too far, even other species who quietly hoped someone would finally stand up to Velcrin aggression. Nari compiled reports that went straight to Admiral Taeyang. Fleet positions, defense stations, supply routes, patrol patterns, everything humanity would need to strike effectively. Some species began to reconsider their neutrality. The Torvins quietly offered to sell humans advanced sensor technology. The Markan, a peaceful trade species, provided detailed star charts of Velcrin space. They didn't offer military support, but they offered something. Hope that humanity wasn't as alone as it seemed. On Earth, Minji graduated from her training program. She had left her comfortable communications job to join the military. Now she wore the uniform of a Navy communications specialist. Her assignment came through the flagship, Admiral Taeyang's personal vessel. She reported for duty on a massive station where the flagship was being constructed. The ship was 10 times larger than a Retribution-class destroyer, a command carrier that would coordinate the entire fleet. Taeyang was there to greet the crew personally. He looked at each person and shook their hand. When he reached Minji, he paused. "You were the one who first noticed New Haven went dark," he said. She nodded. "Yes, sir, good instincts. We'll need that." He moved on to the next person, but Minji felt a surge of purpose. She was exactly where she needed to be. By month 8, the fleet reached 600,000 ships. The final 100,000 were being constructed at an accelerated pace. Crews were being assigned. Weapons were being loaded. Supply chains were being organized. Premier Jiwan visited the main shipyard to see the progress. She floated in a small shuttle between the massive construction frames, watching workers swarm over hull plates and engine assemblies. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time. "They said we couldn't do it," General Kyungmin said beside her. "They were wrong," Jiwan replied. About many things she thought about the Galactic Council, their dismissive attitudes, their assumption that humans would simply accept the loss and move on. The orbital shipyards around Earth had never been so crowded. Thousands of construction frames filled the space between Earth and Luna, each one building another piece of humanity's promise. Borum floated through the zero gravity of Shipyard 7, checking the hull integrity of Destroyer 445-8992. She had checked thousands of ships over the past months. Every weld, every power coupling, every weapons mount. Her team worked 18-hour shifts, sleeping in modules attached to the shipyard. There was no time to return to Earth. No time for anything except the work. "This section passes inspection," she told her assistant, a young engineer named Minho. He marked it in the database and they moved to the next frame. Borum was exhausted. They all were. But nobody complained. Every person working on these ships knew someone who had died on New Haven. For Borum, it was her best friend from university. They had talked just days before the massacre, planning a visit. That visit would never happen now. So Borum checked every weld, made sure every ship would hold together in combat. It was the least she could do. Down on Earth, the factories had transformed. The massive civilian manufacturing centers that once produced cars and appliances now churned out weapons. Railgun barrels, fusion missiles, armor plating. The machines ran day and night, never stopping. Workers operated in 3 shifts. When one team left, another arrived. The factory floors never went silent. The production quotas were staggering, but somehow they met them, then exceeded them. In the training facilities scattered across Earth and Mars, millions of humans learned how to fight in space. Captain Junho stood in a simulator, sweat dripping down his face. He had just completed his 15th combat scenario of the day. His virtual ship had been destroyed in 12 of them. Again, he told the instructor. The instructor, a grizzled veteran named Sergeant Taejin, raised an eyebrow. "You've been in there for 9 hours, Captain. Take a break." "Again," Junho repeated. Taejin sighed but reset the simulation. The Velkrin fought differently than humans. They relied on brute force and individual ship power. Human ships were weaker one-on-one, so they had to fight smarter, use coordination, support each other, strike from multiple angles. Junho had to learn this instinctively. His crew's lives would depend on it. So he ran the simulation again. This time he survived for 7 minutes before a Velkrin battlecruiser obliterated him. Progress. In the intelligence division, Nari studied 3-dimensional maps of Velkrin space. Red markers showed military installations. Blue markers showed civilian populations. Yellow markers indicated supply depots and fuel stations. The information had come from dozens of sources. Some was purchased from information brokers. Some came from hacked Velkrin networks. Some arrived from other species who secretly hoped humanity would succeed. Nari had spent months piecing together the complete picture of Velkrin military strength. They had approximately 150,000 warships spread across 40 systems. Their vessels were larger and more heavily armed than human ships. Each Velkrin battlecruiser could probably destroy 3 or 4 human destroyers, but humanity would have numbers and coordination, and most importantly, humanity would have surprise. The Velkrin still didn't believe the humans would actually attack. Intelligence reports indicated they were fortifying border systems, but they hadn't gone to full military alert. They thought they had time. They thought humans were too cautious, too afraid of the established powers. They were about to learn otherwise. Admiral Taeyang spent his days moving between shipyards and training facilities. He needed to see the progress himself, needed to look his future crews in the eye, needed to understand what he was asking of them. At Training Station Delta, he watched new captains run simulations. Some were talented, others struggled. All of them were determined. He saw young people barely out of school and veterans who had come out of retirement. They all wanted to serve. Taeyang pulled Captain Junho aside after watching him complete a particularly difficult scenario. "You died again." "Yes, sir," Junho admitted. "But I lasted 3 minutes longer than last time." "The Velkrin won't give you credit for improvement," Taeyang said. But there was approval in his eyes. "Good work. You're learning." Junho saluted and returned to the simulator. Taeyang watched him go and felt a weight settle on his shoulders. He was going to send tens of thousands of people like Junho into combat. Some would not come home. That responsibility kept him awake at night. But the alternative was worse. If humanity did nothing, the message to the galaxy would be clear. You can kill humans without consequence. Other species would see humanity as weak. More colonies would be attacked. More people would die. No, this had to be done. The price of peace was sometimes paid in blood. On the Galactic Council station, Ambassador Hyunwoo attended a diplomatic function. The hall was filled with representatives from dozens of species. They talked about trade agreements and territorial disputes. Normal galactic politics. But everyone watched Hyunwoo. The human ambassador had become famous over the past months. His species was building the largest military fleet in history, and he walked among them as if nothing was unusual. A Markan ambassador approached him. The Markan were peaceful traders who avoided conflict whenever possible. "Ambassador, there are rumors that your fleet is nearly complete." "Not rumors," Hyunwoo said calmly. "Facts. We're ahead of schedule, actually." The Markan's 3 eyes blinked in sequence. "And you truly intend to attack the Velkrin Dominion?" "They are one of the most powerful military forces in the galaxy. They murdered 2.3 million of our people, Hyunwoo replied. What would your species do? The Markin had no answer to that. Across the hall, Sina watched the exchange. The Velkrin representative had been monitoring human activities closely. She sent daily reports to the High Command, but they continued to dismiss her concerns. She approached Hyunwoo directly. Your people are making a mistake. The Velkrin Dominion has fought wars for 1,000 years. We have never been defeated, Hyunwoo met her gaze. There's a first time for everything. Sina's jaw tightened. You will lose thousands of ships, thousands of lives. And for what? The Council has promised an investigation. The Council has promised words, Hyunwoo said quietly. We prefer action. You should prepare your people, Representative. The fleet will arrive in Velkrin space within 2 months. He walked away, leaving Sina standing alone. She immediately sent an urgent message to the High Command. The humans are serious. They will attack. We need to prepare. This time the response was different. Let them come. We will show them what happens when a child species challenges the Velkrin. Fortify all border systems. Prepare the home fleet. When they arrive, we will crush them so thoroughly that no species will ever challenge us again. Back in human space, the fleet assembly continued. Ships that had been scattered across dozens of construction sites now gathered in designated sectors. The logistics of organizing 700,000 vessels were staggering. Minji worked from the bridge of the UES Daehyun's Hope, coordinating the assembly. Each ship needed to be registered, assigned to a battle group, loaded with weapons and supplies. Crews needed to be organized and trained to work together. She barely slept. Communications channels were constantly active. Questions came in every minute. Problems needed solutions. But slowly, impossibly, the chaos became order. The fleet formed into 7 main battle groups. Each group contained 100,000 ships. Each group had a specific target in Velkrin space. They would enter simultaneously, striking at multiple points to divide Velkrin forces. Admiral Taeyang reviewed the battle plans with his senior staff. General Kyungmin pointed to the holographic map. Battle Group 1 will hit their border installations here. Battle Groups 2 and 3 will target their supply lines. 4 and 5 will engage their main fleet. 6 will secure these systems to prevent reinforcements. 7 remains in reserve. Casualties? Taeyang asked. Kyungmin's expression darkened. Projections suggest we'll lose between 30 and 50,000 ships in the initial engagements. More if the Velkrin fight harder than expected. 50,000 ships. That meant up to 2 million crew members. Taeyang felt the weight of those numbers, but he nodded. Acceptable. We proceed. The final weeks before departure were intense. Every ship underwent final inspections. Every crew ran through last-minute drills. Weapons were tested and calibrated. Supplies were loaded and secured. Captain Junho stood on the bridge of his destroyer for the first time. The ship still smelled of fresh metal and new electronics. His crew of 40 moved around the bridge, familiarizing themselves with their stations. His second-in-command, Lieutenant Sunmi, stood beside him. The crew is ready, Captain. We all are. Junho looked at his people. They were so young. Most of them had never been in combat. They trusted him to lead them through what was coming. He would do everything in his power to bring them home. Good, he said, because this is about to become very real. The day of departure arrived. 700,000 ships hung in space, arranged in perfect formations. It was the most beautiful and terrible thing anyone had ever seen. The vessels stretched as far as sensors could detect. A sea of metal and weapons and human determination. On Earth, billions watched the broadcast. Every human alive knew someone serving in the fleet. The streets were silent. The human fleet emerged from jump space at 7 different points along the Velkrin border. 700,000 ships appeared simultaneously, their arrival lighting up every sensor and detection grid in Velkrin space like a sudden sunrise. On the bridge of the UES Daehyun's Hope, Admiral Taeyang watched the tactical display. Green markers showed human ships spreading into attack formations. Red markers indicated Velkrin positions. There were far fewer red markers than he had expected. They didn't believe we would come, General Kyungmin said beside him. Their mistake, Taeyang replied. All battle groups proceed with assigned objectives. Rules of engagement are active. Military targets only. If it doesn't shoot at you, you don't shoot at it. The orders went out across the fleet. This was not a war of extinction. This was about justice. about showing the galaxy that humanity could fight with both strength and restraint. At border station Krenvik, the Velkrin garrison commander stared at his sensors in disbelief. 5,000 Velkrin warships guarded this sector. It had always been enough. No species had ever challenged Velkrin borders with force. But now his screen showed 100,000 human vessels approaching in perfect formation. He sent an immediate distress signal and ordered his ships to engage. The Velkrin ships moved forward, their massive battle cruisers leading the attack. Each one was 3 times larger than a human destroyer. Their weapons could tear through armor like paper. They had fought 100 wars and never lost. Captain Junho watched the Velkrin ships approach on his display. His hands were steady on the controls. Months of training had prepared him for this moment. All weapons ready? Ready, Captain, his weapons officer confirmed. Stay in formation, Junho ordered. Remember the drill. We don't fight them alone. The Velkrin opened fire first. Massive energy beams lanced across space, hitting the front line of human ships. 3 destroyers exploded immediately. 5 more took critical damage, but the human fleet didn't break. They had trained for this. Expected it, accepted it, return fire, Junho ordered. Focus targeting on their lead battle cruiser. His destroyer's railguns fired, sending solid metal projectiles at incredible speeds. Alone, the shots would have barely scratched the Velkrin armor. But Junho's ship wasn't alone. 50 other destroyers fired at the same target at the same moment. The Velkrin battle cruiser's shields flickered under the coordinated assault, then failed. Railgun rounds punched through armor. Fusion missiles followed, exploding deep inside the ship. The massive vessel broke apart in a ball of fire. The Velkrin commander couldn't believe what he was seeing. One of his strongest ships destroyed in seconds. The humans fought like nothing he had encountered before, not as individual warriors, but as a single organism. Every ship supporting the others. Every attack coordinated perfectly. All ships concentrate fire, he ordered. But his fleet was already in trouble. The humans surrounded them from multiple angles. When Velkrin ships turned to face one threat, 3 others hit them from behind. The battle lasted 30 minutes. When it ended, the Velkrin garrison was destroyed. All 5,000 ships reduced to debris. The human fleet had lost 2,800 vessels, but they had won. Junho looked at the casualty reports on his screen. So many ships, so many crews, but they had succeeded. The border was breached. Captain, incoming transmission from the flagship, his communications officer said. Admiral Taeyang's voice came through clearly. Battle Group 1, objective achieved. Proceed to next target. Battle Groups 2 through 7, report status. Across Velkrin space, similar battles played out. The humans hit military installations, supply depots, and patrol routes. Everywhere they went, they moved with overwhelming force and precise coordination. The Velkrin had never faced an enemy like this. Their warriors were brave and their ships powerful, but they fought as individuals seeking glory. The humans fought as a unified machine, each part supporting the whole. In the Velkrin capital, Warlord Thovak received the reports with growing anger. His border garrisons were falling. Human ships were penetrating deep into Velkrin space. This was supposed to be impossible. Recall the home fleet, he ordered. Every available ship. We crush these insects now. The Velkrin assembled their main battle force, 150,000 warships, the pride of their military. They were the ships that had conquered a dozen species, the weapons that had maintained Velkrin dominance for 1,000 years. They would meet the humans at the Crimson Nebula, a vast cloud of gas and dust on the edge of Velkrin core territory. It would be the largest space battle in galactic history. Admiral Taeyang received the intelligence reports from Nari. The Velkrin are gathering their full fleet. They want to end this in one decisive battle. Let them come, Taeyang said. We didn't bring 700,000 ships to run away. Order all battle groups to converge on the Crimson Nebula. This is what we came for. The human fleet gathered. 657,000 ships remained after the border battles. They formed up in a vast sphere formation, with the flagship at the center. On the other side of the nebula, the Velkrin fleet assembled in traditional attack formation. Their battle cruisers formed a wall of metal and weapons. They had fought like this for centuries. It had always worked. Warlord Thovak addressed his fleet from his command ship. These humans dare to challenge the Velkrin dominion. They think their numbers matter. But we are warriors born. We are the sword of the Velkrin people. Today we show them that power, True power cannot be matched by children playing at war.
All ships, attack.
The Velcrin fleet surged forward. Energy weapons lit up the nebula. Missiles streaked through space by the thousands. It was the most terrifying and beautiful sight any of them had ever seen. The human fleet did not retreat. They had come too far for that. All ships assume defensive formation Omega. Admiral Taeyang ordered. Focus fire protocols are active. Let's show them what coordination really means. The two fleets collided in the heart of the nebula. The battle that followed would be studied for centuries. The Velcrin attacked in waves, trying to break through human lines. Their battle cruisers were powerful, destroying multiple human ships with each attack. But for every human destroyer they killed, 10 more focused fire on the attacker. The Velcrin ships died one by one, pulled down by coordinated strikes. Captain Junho's destroyer took a hit from a Velcrin energy beam. His shields failed. Hull breaches on decks 2 and 3. Casualties reported. Seal those decks, he ordered. Reroute power to weapons. We're not done yet. His crew worked frantically. Half their systems were damaged, but the ship still fought. Lieutenant Sunmi managed to restore partial shields. The weapons officer kept firing even as explosions rocked the ship. Captain, 3 Velcrin ships are targeting us, the sensor officer warned. Junho saw them on his display. His damaged ship couldn't survive that much firepower. Send distress signal. Request support. Within seconds, 20 human destroyers broke formation to protect Junho's ship. They placed themselves between him and the Velcrin attackers, took the hits meant for his crew, sacrificed themselves so his ship could survive. Junho watched 2 of his rescuers die, torn apart by Velcrin weapons. But the 3rd Velcrin ship fell to concentrated fire from the other human vessels. His crew had time to make emergency repairs. Get us back in the fight, Junho said quietly. His crew nodded and worked faster. Across the battlefield, similar scenes played out hundreds of times. Human ships protected each other, took hits for their comrades, fought not for individual glory but for collective victory. The Velcrin had never encountered this kind of fighting. In their culture, a warrior proved themselves through personal achievement. But the humans cared nothing for individual recognition. They cared about the mission, about bringing their people home, about ensuring New Haven was not forgotten. Admiral Taeyang monitored the battle from the flagship. The casualty numbers climbed steadily. 30,000 ships lost, then 40,000. Each one represented 40 crew members. He felt every loss, but he didn't waver. Admiral, the Velcrin command ship has been identified, Minji reported. Warlord Thovak's flagship. Taeyang studied the display. The Velcrin leader's ship was surrounded by guards positioned in the rear of their formation. Protected. Safe. Battle Group 7, you're up. Target the Velcrin command ship. Cut the head off the snake. Battle Group 7 had remained in reserve until now. 100,000 fresh ships suddenly entered the battle, driving straight for Thovak's position. The Velcrin tried to intercept them, but they couldn't stop that much force. Warlord Thovak watched in horror as human ships overwhelmed his guard fleet. They were everywhere. Too many, too coordinated. This wasn't how battles were supposed to work. Where was the glory? Where was the single combat? These humans fought like machines without honor, but they were winning. All ships protect the flagship, he ordered desperately. His remaining ships tried to form a defensive screen, but human weapons punched through. Railgun rounds, fusion missiles, and then something new. The graviton cannons fired, experimental weapons that the humans had never used in combat before. They distorted space itself, crushing Velcrin ships like tin cans. The effect was devastating. Thovak's flagship took multiple hits. Systems failed across the ship. Hull breaches opened to space. The Velcrin homeworld appeared on the sensors like a blue and green jewel. 8 billion people lived on that planet. Cities covered 3 continents. Orbital stations circled above. It was beautiful and peaceful, just like New Haven had been before the Velcrin destroyed it. Admiral Taeyang stood on the bridge of the flagship, looking at the planet on his main screen. 657,000 human warships spread out around the world, their weapons armed and ready. A single order from him would turn that beautiful planet into a burning wasteland. The power to destroy an entire civilization rested in his hands. Sir, we're receiving transmission requests from the planet, Minji reported. Hundreds of them. The Velcrin government wants to talk. Let them wait, Taeyang said quietly. He needed time to think. On the planet below, panic had seized the population. News of the fleet's defeat at the Crimson Nebula had arrived hours ago. Now human warships filled the sky. Every Velcrin citizen looked up and saw death hanging above them. The Velcrin Council of Leaders met in emergency session. These were the officials who had ordered the New Haven massacre, who had thought humanity would never respond, who had believed their military was invincible. Now they faced extinction. "We must surrender," one council member said. "Give them what they want, anything they want." "We should negotiate," another argued. "Offer them territory, resources, anything but complete submission." An older council member, a female warrior named Kasira, shook her head. "We have nothing to negotiate with. Our fleet is destroyed. Our borders are breached. We can only hope they show more mercy than we showed them." On the UES Daihyun's Hope, Admiral Taeyang called a meeting with his senior staff, General Kyung-min, Ambassador Hyun-woo, who had arrived with the fleet, intelligence officer Nari, and several others gathered in the conference room. "We have a decision to make," Taeyang said. "The Velcrin are defenseless. We could glass that planet, kill every living thing, make sure they never threaten anyone again." He paused and looked at each person. "Or we can show the galaxy that humanity is better than that we came for justice, not genocide, that even in our anger, we remember who we are." General Kyung-min spoke first. "If we destroy them, no one will ever dare attack humans again. Fear is effective. Fear is temporary," Ambassador Hyun-woo countered. "Eventually someone will challenge us again. But if we show restraint, if we prove we can win without becoming monsters, we earn something more valuable than fear. We earn respect." Nari pulled up intelligence files. "I've identified the Velcrin military leadership responsible for New Haven. 3,000 officers, including Warlord Thovak, who survived the battle. They're still on the planet. We can target them specifically." Taeyang nodded slowly. "Premier Jiwan is waiting for my recommendation. The decision ultimately rests with Earth's government, but she'll follow whatever I suggest. So I'm asking you all, what should humanity do?" The debate lasted 2 hours. Some argued for total destruction, others for mercy. Captain Junho, invited to provide a frontline perspective, shared his thoughts. "I lost half my crew in the Crimson Nebula," he said. "Good people. Young people. They died fighting for justice. If we kill billions of civilians now, their deaths become part of a massacre, not a mission of justice. I don't want that. I want their sacrifice to mean something better." The room fell silent. Finally, Admiral Taeyang made his decision. "We came to send a message. Let's make sure it's the right one." He opened a communication channel to Earth. Premier Jiwan's face appeared on the screen. Taeyang could see the weight she carried. The same weight he felt. "Admiral, what are your recommendations?" Taeyang explained his plan. When he finished, Jiwan was quiet for a long moment. "The people of Earth want revenge," she said finally. "Many will see mercy as weakness." "Then we need to show them it's not," Taeyang replied. "Mercy from a position of strength is the ultimate display of power. We can destroy them, but we choose not to. That sends a stronger message than any weapon." Jiwan nodded slowly. "I agree. Proceed with your plan. And Admiral, thank you for remembering who we are." The communication ended. Taeyang turned to Minji. "Open a channel to the Velcrin government, and make sure every species in the galaxy can hear this." The transmission went out across all frequencies. Every news organization, every government, every ship in the sector received it. This moment would be remembered forever. Taeyang's face appeared on billions of screens across the Velcrin homeworld and throughout the galaxy. "I am Admiral Taeyang of the United Earth Navy. 9 months ago, the Velcrin Dominion attacked New Haven Colony. 2.3 million human civilians were murdered. Men, women, and children killed for no reason except that the Velcrin thought they could act without consequence." His voice was calm but carried absolute authority. "We came seeking justice. We came with 700,000 warships. We destroyed your border defenses. We crushed your fleet at the Crimson Nebula. Now we stand above your homeworld with enough firepower to end your civilization." On the planet below, people watched in terror. This was the moment. The end. "But we are not you," Taeyang continued. "We do not murder civilians. We do not destroy worlds. We came for the guilty, not the innocent. Therefore, I am ordering human marines to land on your planet. They will arrest Warlord Thovak and every military officer who participated in the New Haven massacre. Approximately 3,000 individuals will be taken into custody to stand trial for war crimes." The shock rippled across the galaxy. The humans weren't going to destroy the planet. To the people of the Velcrin homeworld, remain in your homes. Do not interfere with the arrests. Any resistance will be met with appropriate force, but we have no desire to harm civilians. To the Galactic Council, prepare a war crimes tribunal. The galaxy will see justice done properly. Taeyang leaned forward slightly, his eyes intense. Let this be understood by every species. Humanity can be peaceful. Humanity can be patient. But if you attack our innocent, if you think we will simply accept it, you will face this fleet, and you will answer for your crimes. We are not seeking war. We are not seeking territory. We seek only one thing, the promise that humans can live in peace without fear of being murdered for the convenience of stronger powers. He paused for effect. That promise has now been delivered. The transmission ended. Throughout the galaxy, beings of every species sat in stunned silence. The humans had won the largest military victory in modern history, and they had chosen mercy. On the Velcrin homeworld, human marines landed in precise formations. They had the addresses of every target. Within 6 hours, all 3,000 war criminals were in custody, including Warlord Thovak. The Velcrin people watched in amazement as human soldiers moved through their cities with discipline and restraint. They arrested only those on the list. They treated civilians with respect. They showed a professionalism that contradicted everything Velcrin culture had taught about other species. At the Galactic Council station, Ambassador Hyun-woo addressed the full assembly. This time no one dismissed him. No one laughed. Every representative listened with absolute attention. Humanity has delivered the accused to face justice, he said. We demand 3 things. First, a proper war crimes tribunal with representatives from neutral species. Second, reparations paid to the families of New Haven victims. Third, significant reduction of Velcrin military forces to ensure this never happens again. He looked directly at the council leadership. The Galactic Council failed to provide justice when we asked. We were forced to seek it ourselves, but we sought it with restraint. We showed the galaxy that humanity can fight and win while maintaining our principles. Now the Council can either endorse these reasonable demands or we will enforce them ourselves. The choice is yours. The Council voted unanimously to accept. Every species recognized that opposing humanity now would be foolish. The humans had proven they could build overwhelming military force. More importantly, they had proven they could use that force wisely. The War Crimes Tribunal became the most watched trial in galactic history. The evidence was overwhelming. Warlord Thovak and his officers had ordered the New Haven massacre, knowing it violated every law of warfare. They had done it to intimidate humanity, to show that the Velcrin could not be challenged. The verdict came after 3 weeks, guilty on all counts. The sentences ranged from life imprisonment to execution, depending on the level of involvement. The galaxy watched as the mighty Velcrin military leadership was held accountable for their actions. On Earth, the fleet began returning home. Ship by ship, the survivors came back to orbit. Families reunited. Memorial services were held for those who didn't return. The cost had been high, but the mission was complete. Captain Junho's damaged destroyer limped home in one of the last groups. His crew had kept the ship running through sheer determination. When they docked at Earth's primary station, Junho stood on the bridge one last time and saluted his crew. You kept us alive. You kept us fighting. I'm proud to have served with you. His crew saluted back. They had gone to war as strangers. They returned as family. Admiral Taeyang oversaw the memorial construction on Earth. 2.3 million names carved into black stone. Each name represented a person who had wanted nothing more than to live in peace. The memorial stretched for miles, a permanent reminder.